Graham, tell us a little bit more about yourself and what your organisation can offer to students and graduates out there.
Okay, thank you, Yasmin. Hello, so as has been said, my name's Graham Cooper, and I'm here today in my capacity of one of the founders of and a current governor of a school in Leeds called UTC Leeds. Now, give you a bit of the history of this. Back in 2014, a group of manufacturing engineering employers got together with Leeds University, and with the support of the Chamber of Commerce and Leeds City Council, we successfully made a bid for government funding to design, build and equip a brand new school in Leeds with a focus on STEM and engineering for years 10 to 13. Now, for my part in that, I was the operations director at Graphics and Manufacturing Leeds, and that's why I was part of that team. Now, a driver for setting up this was a growing shortage of skills available to manufacturing, and that's still a real and current problem. But there was a very strong feeling that schools and universities were simply not preparing young people for the world of work. In fact, the previous speaker, when he's shown you internships, is a really good thing for you to go on and get some real experience. You will be much more attractive to an employer with that experience. And as we engage with more and more manufacturers in the city doing this project, we found everybody had similar experiences when employing young people. They simply were not ready for the working environment. And common issues that were talked about with young people were poor timekeeping, poor attendance, not working well to deadlines, and not working well in teams. Now, my own company had experienced exactly these issues with young recruits, and I thought we'd just been unlucky. But speaking to other employers made me realise it's more systemic, more widespread than that. Now, I'd like to stress here, I'm not having a go at young people. It's not the fault of the young people. It's based on the way the traditional school experience and the university experience teaches them. And by necessity in those academic things, most work is individual work leading to some sort of examination. Therefore, if you as an individual have poor timekeeping, poor attendance, or submit work late, it only impacts you. In contrast, when you go to work, most work in any business is part of some sort of team. Therefore, if you're late in, or if you don't come into work, or if you deliver some work after the deadline, it invariably impacts other team members. Now, a big attraction the UTC movement has for employers is that the UTCs deliberately create a work-like environment within them. And as part of the preparation for our school opening, we canvassed opinion from manufacturers and the University of Leeds about what attributes they would like to see young people being taught about to prepare them for the world of work. And I just share my screen. This is the list that came up. So that list is what we call the 7 employability skills. Now, if you're interested in this, there's no need to write them down or anything like that. You can go on the UTC Leeds website and see those. But students now at UTC Leeds, they're taught the traditional STEM subjects and they take GCSEs or A-levels like other schools. However, the students are constantly encouraged to think about what they are doing in the UTC in terms of these 7 employability skills, and they're encouraged to develop them and think about them. Now, they routinely do work in teams to stimulate a more work-like environment, and employers actually set projects for the students to work on, real-life work projects. Now, this is clearly working. If I show you the destination data for last year's year 13, you can see that the school had 0% NEETs, which is very rare in a school, but this is in fact the normal for UTC Leeds. So the destination data for the young people is really very good. I'll go back to the main point. So my first piece of advice is if you're the right age, so if you're in year 9 or below, or if you're currently in years 10 or 11, consider moving to a UTC as your next step. They're all over the country. And they take entry at year 10 and at year 12. But I'm imagining that's not a possibility for lots of people on here. So I would suggest you look at these skills that I've got up on the screen there And you'll have done things like this in your own life. Think about what teams you've been involved in, what problems have you solved. Just get the thought process going. What have you done that's creative? What have you helped to organise? And employers will be impressed by young people who can talk about this sort of activity when they come in for an interview. The academic subjects you get, the GCSEs, A-levels and degrees, typically will just qualify you to get for an interview. They won't get you the job. So a bit more advice from an employer to those young people applying for jobs. One thing to understand is that normally there are far too many applicants for a job who have the required qualifications, and there's too many for them all to be interviewed by an employer. So as an employer, you've then got the very difficult job of reducing the numbers down to who you'll actually interview in a way that's non-discriminatory. And you as a young person applying for that job, you've got to be careful you don't give the employers an easy way to sift you out. This might not be particularly fair, but it is a fact of life. So to avoid being cut early from a list of applicants, read the job advert really, really carefully and do exactly what it requires you to do and provide exactly all the information it asks for. I'll give you a real example. We put in all our adverts for all our positions, we're looking for people with attention to detail. And we do that because it's necessary in the process, and that's the sort of skill we need. We also say in there, we want your CV and we want a letter describing your current employment status and any experience you've got. A staggeringly large percentage of young people just send in a CV. Now, unfortunately, all those people, the CVs just went in the bin. We didn't even consider them for an interview. You know, so they'd failed because they clearly were not paying attention to detail. So a couple more tips before I finish. Before you go for an interview, if you get through to the interview, look up the company on the internet and make some notes of intelligent questions you can ask about the company and its products. Make notes and don't worry about having those notes and taking them into an interview with you. There's not an employer I know who would object to that. Also make some notes about the sort of extra skills you have learned. So if you've done any of these 7 skills that I've got up, make a note down of it. I'll just actually stop sharing that while I remember so that I don't forget later on. Make some notes about questions you can ask about the job. Now, it's careful here what you ask. You know, ask about the type of work that you'd be doing, who you'd be working with. Even ask about training opportunities and where you will get promoted. Do not ask about pay and holidays. At that stage, if you get a job offer, that will come later. But an employer doesn't want to look at you and think all they're interested in is when they can go on holiday. You know, so be very careful what you ask. And the final thing, which sort of goes right back to what I said at the beginning, poor timekeeping is by reputation, young people have it in industry. Make sure you know where the interview is being held and you know how you're going to get there, and you would get there early. You know, you're better off spending 15 or 30 minutes outside a factory or an office block rather than arriving 15 or 30 minutes late. But be prepared. So also have you've all have mobile phones with you. Have the telephone in that mobile phone number, the telephone number of a contact at the company. And if something happens, you know, a bus breaks down or there's a road blockage or something that unavoidable, you can ring them up before you're late and tell them you're going to be late. And that will go down a long way as well. So that's it for me, Jasmine. That's my section finished.